confident that about 80% of the audience recognizes this movie. The Money Heist series on Netflix once caused a global internet sensation, creating a media impact so immense it's hard to imagine. We witness intense intellectual battles, dramatic action scenes, along with an incredibly detailed and meticulous bank robbery plan. Compared to 5 eggs or 1 missile, the amount of money that can be taken from a real bank robbery is truly enormous. Therefore, since its inception, banks have always been the primary target of the world's most sophisticated criminal groups. Of course, most of them fail, because a place like a bank is always protected by heavy security forces and the most advanced security equipment. But there are always exceptions. Nowhere in this world is absolutely safe. Primitive Universe is here to bring you the boldest bank robberies in history. Let's go together to France. This is the Rivera branch of the giant Société Générale Bank, located opposite Jean Médecin Avenue, on the main street of Nice, a city in the southeast region of France. Why do I call this bank a giant? No need for much explanation, you just need to look at this branch to know. It occupies half the length and half the width of an entire block. On Monday morning, July 19, 1976, when a crowd gathered in front of the main headquarters, they seemed very impatient. How could they not be impatient when the vault door was having problems and couldn't open? At least that's what the bank leadership stated. The bank leaders also explained that the door had jammed before and would be resolved momentarily. But that wasn't the case. By 10 a.m., experts from the lock manufacturer Fish's Laws were still working on the giant steel door. But the lock remained stuck. Upstairs, anger began to flare. By noon, it was decided to break the adjacent door and fix the issue from inside. Drills and hammers were mobilized. By 3 p.m., a small hole was finally opened. The workers looked in. Within 15 minutes from that moment, the bank was flooded with police and staff, along with the most important law enforcement agencies in Nice. One by one, they peered through the hole to observe the vault. What did they see? Inside, the safe door was wide open. The steel mesh had been cut into pieces. The floor was covered with papers over 10 centimeters thick. All were valuable, such as uncancelled checks, bearer bonds, stocks, bank books, and wills. Peeking through the pile of papers were dusty tools, crowbars, chisels, drills, hydraulic jacks, 6 blowtorches, punches, hammer drills, 27 acid containers, totaling about 2 tons in weight. What does such a scene look like? Yes, there had just been a robbery here. But the vault door was still stuck. With only a hole like this, how to access the scene now? The smallest man present was asked to squeeze through the hole to get inside. But the thieves had disappeared. Later, it was determined that about $10 million in assets were missing, mostly cash. The rest were gold bars and jewelry, with 317 safety deposit boxes cut open by the gang. This was not only the largest lost bank robbery in French history at that time, but also the most artistic robbery. But why was the vault door so tightly stuck? It turned out it wasn't faulty, and it had been welded shut from the inside. Amazingly, the man who entered the tunnel also saw a tunnel, a portable stove, along with empty food packaging and dirty pots. The thieves had cooked hot meals here. Look, old bread crusts and empty wine bottles. Unbelievable. The thieves probably had hot pot and rested here for weeks. Finally, the locks were broken. The heavy vault door opened without a sound. Police officers checked the iron bars, the scorched vault entrance, the breached vault, and the documents scattered like leaves under their shoe soles. Silent for a moment, no one moved or spoke, the mood almost fearful. These officers had been to hundreds of crime scenes, but never like this. The miracle here was the intrusion technology. It was like magic. They also stared at this mocking phrase, which meant no weapons, no violence, no hatred. In the money vault, police had new discoveries. 30 kilograms of white powder scattered was collected, counterfeit bills, hairpins, and a magnificent ruby ring. Clearly, the gang had not taken anything that could be traced by police, no matter how valuable. There were dozens of pearl necklaces in a sack that they must have decided to leave at the last moment. T notice or didn't. The authorities focused on the tunnel, drilled through 45 centimeters of reinforced concrete. It was over 70 centimeters wide and about 60 centimeters high. With a jagged opening, police shone flashlights into it and down the darkening throat of the tunnel. The tunnel was over 9 meters long and every few meters was supported by metal or wooden posts, some made of cement. Like a construction masterpiece. Surprisingly, it wasn't too large, just enough for a grown man to crawl through. It's truly baffling how the gang managed to bring 2 tons of tools through this tunnel. In some places, the tunnel walls were neatly plastered with cement. A 15 centimeters diameter ventilation pipe brought in fresh air. There was even a cocoa malt rug on the floor and a long electrical cable. After many efforts, they finally found the tunnel connected to the main sewer line in the middle of Rue de la Loire behind the bank. Police, detectives, and related parties spent the next 10 days just wandering and exploring the sewers. Back at the crime scene, an hour had passed. Everyone's expressions shifted from curiosity and inquisitiveness to fear and gloom. There's too much work to do right now. We need to create a tool inventory, tally the lost assets, record every minor detail. Technicians will have to dust every surface for fingerprints, although if there are any gloves covered in soil left behind, this might be futile. In this secret vault, there are 4,000 lockers, meaning 4,000 people need to be interviewed, plus dozens of related connections. Not stopping there, any employee who has ever worked at the bank must be checked. Looking for gang's familiarity with the bank, the possibility that the perpetrator worked here cannot be ruled out. Over 900 detectives in this area were ordered to contact each of their local informants and ask, "What have you heard?" All gendarmerie units in every village of Soy must also stop patrolling. Have you noticed anything unusual in recent weeks? The origin of the 27 rolls of wire at city land is also a mystery to be solved. The wire is not ordinary. At that time, anyone who sold this special wire must be found, as it wasn't common. This case must be resolved. That's not just about losing money, The official investigation begins. The burden of this investigation will fall on the 30-person team of the Nice Judicial Police Special Unit. Many of them had planned to go on vacation in August with their families. But they understood that immediately, starting that dark Monday in the money vault, there would be no vacation. France has over a dozen police authorities, including a national police force of about 105,000 members, recruited and paid by the Interior Ministry. Additionally, there are 65,000 members of the National Gendarmerie, a branch of the military, with authority over military crimes, plus patrolling rural areas and highways. The National Investigative Agency is the Judicial Police, abbreviated as PJ, with 18,000 detectives, possessing all advanced laboratories. On the morning of October 26th, the 100th day of the investigation, simultaneously in Nice, Marseille, Paris, and other cities, 27 people were arrested by police, detectives, and gendarmes for questioning. The suspects were detained under a legal procedure for 48 hours, without the right to call a lawyer but with the right to remain silent. Then suddenly, the PJ got the name of the mastermind, a name but with almost no evidence against him. Surprisingly, despite the rumors everywhere, he hadn't fled. He sat there as if indifferent to the world. Police decided to arrest him, believing that in 48 hours of questioning, he would break. That name was Albert Spacchiari, 44 years old, a photographer. He ran a photo shop in the same neighborhood as the Soltis General Bank branch in Nice. Some people brought Bert photos for processing or hired him for wedding parties and large events. Bert was invited to City Hall and sometimes asked to photograph visiting sports teams. His wife, Marcelle, nicknamed Audi, was a nurse with many patients under her care. She traveled all over the city to clients' homes to inject Thai Bang medicine. Marcel worked in a small room next to the photo shop. The couple lived in a two-room apartment on the 8th floor of the same building. They had been married for 17 years and had no children. About 4 or 5 years ago, Bert and his wife bought a ruined farm at the end of a deserted road on the Maritime Alps, about 40 kilometers north of Nice. That place was a beautiful, wild land with 100-year-old pine and oak trees, ancient and noble rock formations. They began rebuilding the house, and when it was completed, Bert called his constructions audacious, meaning the royal goose. They planted corn in a garden and started raising chickens, probably because it wasn't suitable there for raising fish and growing vegetables. Bert and his wife wanted to leave the photo shop and retreat to the eternal royal goose estate. They had meat, eggs, vegetables, peace. What more could any lonely man want? Bert was also an introverted adventurer. He had lived in North Africa and was someone who could sit for hours watching the wind sweep across sand dunes. On October 28, 1976, the 102nd day of the investigation, Bert and Audi had lunch with a friend in the pub across from the photo shop. None of the three seemed tense or worried about the police hunting the bank robbers. The incident was still ongoing and was almost the only topic of conversation in that place. Bert mentioned a somewhat strange phone call. He agreed to meet some strange men about some business proposal. The meeting point in front of Bert's shop in a few minutes. As soon as he left the restaurant, a car was waiting for Bert at the door. He got in the car, sat between two men and was taken away. Bert sat between two detectives, looking confused. "Me, the police?" he asked. "Why? This is ridiculous." He tried to explain he was just a friendly neighborhood photo assistant, a pot-bellied farmer. He knew nothing about the state bank robbers, but the detectives remained silent. Bert was fingerprinted, photographed and detained starting at 2:30 p.m. The detectives began interrogating aggressively, through dinner, then midnight and until dawn the next day. Occasionally detectives were sent to buy food for Bert, however there was no free meal here. He had to pay out of his own pocket. In no time it was 2:30 p.m. the next day. Now Bert needed to shave and his clothes were wrinkled, but the detectives looked even worse. "You admit you." The search warrant had been issued and everyone was taken to the Royal Goose House. All the detectives paid attention to every detail and their hearts tightened. The feeling of fear was impossible to hide. They noticed a complex gun rack and their hopes rose again. Handguns, carbines, an unfamiliar machine gun, even a crossbow. But interviews with villagers showed Bert had never even been hunting. He belonged to the gentle type. Bert hadn't even killed a chicken for dinner. The village butcher had to do it for him. They told the detectives Bert would be the last man in the world to rob a bank. While the detectives insisted, he was a cold, calculating criminal. But the Wild Goose estate was searched from inside out with nothing unusual found. Meanwhile, other detectives were digging deeper into Bert's past. At 17, Bert ran away to join the Giuliano Sicilian gang. Italian police brought young Bert back home. At 19, Bert joined the paratroopers and fought in Indochina. There, due to careless use of weapons and causing serious consequences, he was forced by a military court to return to France, serving a 4-year sentence. In 1958, Bert went to North Africa to start a new life. He joined the secret right-wing forces fighting to prevent Algeria's independence. He even proposed assassinating the president there but was refused. Later, Burt was arrested for complicity with political terrorism and had to serve another 3.5 years in prison. However, his past with French law involved political and military matters. Therefore, Burt was not a regular customer or suspect of the French police. They told Burt that his accomplices had confessed to the truth and even the hypothetical gang-related information. However, the results weren't very promising yet. And the breakthrough started happening from here. French police received a special message from Interpol, the International Criminal Police Organization, something they could use to end Burt's stubbornness. Interpol reported that someone suddenly named Albus Bagheri had come forward, trying to contact the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency of America, and introduced himself as the head of a professional theft group ready to break into European embassies on behalf of his agency. When asked to provide proof of achievements, this person replied, they heard about the crime of the century, Haven. The CIA notified Interpol and that information reached France, accusing Burt. The battle was over. Burt finally confessed to his crimes. And he was the mastermind. Burt had rented a safe deposit box at the Sotheby's Manor Bank 2 years earlier. This idea came to him quite unexpectedly on that day. Then every time he went down to the money hall, he thought about it. One day, when alone in the vault, Burt took thorough photographs of the place. After that, he searched for the sewers. For 6 nights, Burt wandered out of the city and often got lost. Unlike the sewer system in Paris, the sewers in Nice had no signs. Each time he got lost, Burt had to lift the manhole cover and look around. Burt went to the city hall and obtained the drainage system drawings. They were public property and builders were allowed to request access at any time. He needed specialized tools that were hard to buy and financial support to purchase them. So Burt went to see the vagabonds in Marseille with his idea. The robbers agreed to participate immediately. 2 teams were formed, each with 10 people. One was the robbery team, the other was Burt's political friends. They worked busily every night for 2 months digging the tunnel. On Friday evening, July 17th, right after the bank closed for the weekend, they attacked and drilled through the final 30-centimeter steel wall. Burt continued to recount. During those 2 days, we were in a state of excitement. We worked together with perfect friendship. We had to share the money with the robbers. After welding the vault door shut, the robbery team welded the seams around it, and also welded all the ventilation grills so no light or smoke could escape. Then the cook comfortably prepared the first meal. They began prying open the safes, armored cabinets, and locked drawers. Another feeling, besides the victorious feeling when the robbery team worked, was surprise. They didn't know the bank was so wealthy. For the robbers, it felt like they were standing at the bottom of a piggy bank full of money. Additionally, there was the bank's own cash reserve fund. And bundles of newspapers in locked boxes, bundles of gold and jewels. So the thieves' plan was completely discovered. But now another problem had arisen. Who were Burt's accomplices in this case? Were they all captured or not? And where was the loot they had taken now? Burt claimed that all the money taken had been donated to a political organization called Katina. However, despite searching everywhere, this organization was never found to have existed. Detectives continued hunting for Burt's accomplices and searching for the loot. Those efforts failed. Burt was brought to trial. Here, although facing 10 to 20 years in prison, he repeated his confession. The case concluded with the sentence given to Albus Bagheri. But importantly, the money stolen from the bank was never found. It could be said that this theft was planned and executed extremely sophisticatedly. However, regarding its boldness, it was certainly highly regarded. Because theft, by nature, is stealthy, afraid of being discovered and must be done without anyone knowing. But this was the boldest bank robbery in history. Just before 7:30 p.m. on January 17, 1950, a group of masked and armed men hastily left house number 165 on Princess Street in Boston, Massachusetts. Carrying found multiple bags containing $1,218,211 in cash. In money, banknotes, stock securities worth $1,557,183. That's right, the brink. After the robbers left the scene, a Brink employee called the Boston police. Just minutes later, police were present at the Brink building and FBI agents immediately began the investigation. From the testimonies of 5 bank employees who were restrained during the robbery, the investigative force determined that about 5 to 7 individuals had broken in. All of them were wearing Halloween masks. Besides the limited descriptions of the robbers from Brink employees, the investigative force only collected a few pieces of evidence. These were some pieces of rope and adhesive tape that the criminals used to tie up and gag the bank employees. An old baseball cap, perhaps accidentally left behind by the robbers at the crime scene. A few hours after the robbery, all suspicious individuals in Boston's criminal underworld were interrogated by police. All activities during the week of mid-January of all criminal underworld members, as well as criminal networks across America, became subjects of investigation. Residents living around the Brink headquarters were also approached by FBI agents. All Brink bank employees, both former and current at that time, had to answer a set of questions about people who had transactions with Brink, even those who had called there. Because according to the FBI, there were people who more or less knew the layout inside the Brink headquarters, as well as the operational procedures of this bank. The U.S. government offered a $100,000 reward for anyone providing information leading to the arrest and prosecution. The investigation attracted millions of Americans to assist. Since the reward was posted, police received all kinds of information. Many residents in California believed the stolen money could be hidden in the Atlantic area near Boston. The FBI had previously thoroughly investigated the Boston Pier area. Some people had provided information to police about conversations they heard in prison regarding plans to rob Brink's bank. Police checked each piece of information but without promising results. The massive amount of information collected in the first weeks of the robbery investigation was continuously screened. All efforts to find traces from the driver's cap, ordinary rope, and roll of adhesive tape left at the scene failed. The criminal underworld believed the Brink's bank robbery bore the hallmark of Pino. The FBI interrogated Pino about his whereabouts at the time of the robbery, and he had a fairly solid alibi. He claimed he was at home until nearly 7 p.m. on January 17, 1950. Then walked to Joseph McKinnis Bar near his home in the Roxbury area of Boston. Here, he talked with McKinnis and a Boston police officer. This alibi was strong but not sufficient. The police officer stated he spoke with McKinnis first, and Pino arrived and joined the conversation. Traveling from the bar to Brink's bank took about 15 minutes, and Pino could have arrived at the bar after 7:30 p.m. and still made it to the robbery. The bar owner McKinnis himself was also considered an influential figure in Boston's criminal underworld. He had been convicted several times before. The criminal underworld also assessed McKinnis as capable of planning and executing the Brink's bank robbery. He also left home before 7 p.m. that evening and had met the police officer at his bar. Assuming Pino and McKinnis were involved, they would never have carried out such a dangerous robbery without capable accomplices. Joseph James O'Keefe and Stanley Albert Gussoria, 2 individuals connected with Pino before the robbery, were also detained for questioning. Both were interrogated by Boston police after the robbery and had no convincing alibis. O'Keefe claimed he left his hotel around 7 p.m. on January 17, 1950, and drank at a bar in Boston. Gussoria also claimed to be drinking at that time. S. bank was being hidden at the home of O. The FBI found several $100s hidden in this house but couldn't determine the source of the money. Keefe and Gussoria couldn't. O'Keefe was sentenced to 3 years in Bradford County Prison and fined $3,000 for weapons violations. Gussoria also received a similar prison sentence. During the period from 1950 to 1954, there were rumors that Boston criminal figures were trying to collect appeal fees for O'Keefe and Gussoria. Keith and Pino were the central figures in the Brink. And while in prison, O'Keefe felt that Pino had betrayed him. However, when interrogated, O'Keefe and Isidora consistently claimed their innocence. Meanwhile, the FBI also followed rumors in the underworld and discovered several names that could be members of the robbery gang, such as Adolf, Joss, Murphy. This person could not specify where they were during the time of the robbery. Henry Baker, a criminal who had also been in prison for another crime in Massachusetts. He meet anyone, and didn't. Analyzing the suspect's statements, the FBI noticed one thing. The suspects frequently mentioned the time of 7 p.m. on January 17, 1950. Since the robbery occurred between 7:10 p.m. and 7:27 p.m., it's very likely the robbery gang arranged to meet someone at a specific time to create an alibi to deceive the police. They tried to create an alibi that matched the robbery time down to the minute to conceal their actions until the last moment. The FBI confirmed they had identified the correct robbery suspects, but the problem was the lack of evidence and witnesses. After many years of investigative efforts, what the FBI wanted finally appeared. O'Keefe was released from prison in January 1954, only to face another prison sentence in Massachusetts related to using weapons while on parole. Before being tried for this case, O'Keefe was given $17,000 to hide. Taking advantage of this rare freedom, he returned to Boston. As predicted, he contacted other members of the robbery gang because he needed money for legal fees. Keefe. Keefe. Other members of the robbery gang were visited one by O'Keefe to demand their share of the loot. Keefe survived an assassination attempt. That wasn't. Keefe. During a visit to O'Keefe in prison after Christmas 1955, the FBI gradually changed his hostile attitude. Precisely, at 4:20 p.m. on January 6, 1956, O'Keefe made the final decision to confess everything. Keefe. Keefe, the Brink. Robbery, the gang members had memorized the layout of Brink. They assigned specific tasks to each other. Some were responsible for taking key impressions to make duplicates. Others studied the bank's work schedule and money transfer timetable. Some focused on understanding the alarm system. They prepared so thoroughly that just by observing the lights of the building, they could determine what Brink's bank employees were doing inside. Moreover, they knew exactly how many staff were on duty at various times of the day. The gang perfected their approach and escape routes to perfection. Asked 6 times but never carried it out because conditions weren't. After smoothly exiting the bank building with money bags, the gang immediately loaded the loot onto a truck parked on Princess Street near the gate door. Asked parents. The truth is that real bank robberies are just as exciting as Hollywood movies. But a wise man has said, you must work to eat. We hear about crimes to understand that no matter how sophisticated they are, it's hard to escape the net of justice, not to idolize them. Thank you for watching this video by Vu Trong Yen Tui. The case according to internet records. Goodbye and wish you a good day. Please subscribe to the Gian Migo channel so you don't miss exciting videos.